Good day. Welcome to a new episode of HKEX Voice, our podcast featuring insights from our senior executives and industry leaders on Hong Kong's financial markets. I'm your host, Jeffrey Ng. By all accounts, 2022 has been a challenging year for global financial markets, and the ripples of the ongoing macro environment, inflationary pressures, and the consequent changes to the interest rates environment have been widely felt across the world, including in mainland China. From our vantage point here in Hong Kong, at the heart of two-way capital flows between East and West, we have witnessed firsthand some of the recent shifts in market trends and activity across Asia and beyond. In particular, this year has also been one in which we are seeing much greater connectivity between China and the world through Hong Kong. Today, we are pleased to have with us Wilfred Yiu, HKEX's Chief Operating Officer and Co-Head of Markets, to share with us some of the recent market developments in mainland China and the region, and how HKEX's Connect initiatives and the ecosystem built around it has continued to support international investors as they trade and manage their China exposure in Hong Kong. Wilfred, welcome back to our program, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It's a pleasure to be here today with you all.
All right, Wilfred, let's get to the most important question here. The first question about the latest market developments that we've seen. It's been a very volatile year. Can you give us an assessment of how these developments have been impacting our markets?
Sure. Obviously, that's a big elephant in the room, and has been a very, very tough year for everyone, I think, and the global market environment has been largely affected by poor market sentiment. Largely is on the back of uncertainty around inflation and also geopolitical tensions that I think has been permeating through the entire year. So if a couple of data points I think is interesting to note, and from a global IPO perspective, this year has been a major slowdown, right? No matter you look at global, right? To date, I think the total fundraise was around $140 billion US. And last year, this time was around like $600 billion plus. So we have seen that massive slowdown in global IPOs. Now, if you look at US market, we also saw a lowest Q3 IPO proceeds in over 5 years in 2022, and only 37 IPOs raised a total of $3.2 billion US. Now, away from the kind of US market, and we're coming back into our Greater China market, we'll look at it in more of a microscope, then we are actually very pleased to see that the Greater China market continue to be very vibrant with a lot of interesting company getting listed. And if you look at the mainland market, for example, a total of 120 IPOs got listed and raised a total of $25 billion US in Q3 of 2022. And that is accounting for roughly 42% of the global IPO proceeds to date. And that is really a very impressive outcome. Now, when we look at Hong Kong, Hong Kong's IPO market also slowed down, mostly affected by the global slowdown in the marketplace. Right. But we still priced over 70 IPOs with a total fundraise of more than $10 billion US. So Greater China, I think as a whole, still have immense amount of opportunities, and we are seeing a lot of vibrancy and activities in that environment. And most importantly is when we look into our Connect program, what we do see is actually a lot more opportunities as more new listing from the mainland company, allowing global investors to be accessing those opportunities through our Connect program. As we are expanding the new listings in Hong Kong, including Chinese returnees, etc., we are seeing continued interest from this southbound, which is the mainland investors' interest in investing in Hong Kong market.
Wilfred, that's very interesting, looking at the contrast between the IPO market example that you raised between the West and the mainland China, Greater China market, which has been quite vibrant by all measures. What are the shifts in the dynamics of the market in this region that you're seeing, and how does Hong Kong fit into those shifting trends?
Yeah, I think there are three key points I want to highlight here. First and foremost, as I mentioned previously, we are seeing a lot more interesting, innovative investment opportunities and companies getting listed in the Greater China market. So that is, I think, very interesting and exciting to see. Now, second point is the interest rate in domestic mainland versus global. I think we are seeing the lower interest rate in mainland China versus the rest of the world. And that is interesting because that keeps a very warm investment environment, especially for mainland investors, to look into investment opportunities in mainland and also outside of mainland. And Hong Kong is obviously a very, very important market to the mainland investors. And that's the point number 2. Now, point number 3 is the role that Hong Kong play. And I think Hong Kong is the super connector for capital markets, where we connect capital with opportunities. As these opportunities are emerging, and we can clearly seeing that capital wants to find opportunities, Hong Kong is providing that platform, that gateway and channel to allow safe, fast, and easy access for no matter global investor investing into mainland or mainland investors investing into Hong Kong.
Wilfred, very interesting observations that you highlight, given the changing in the dynamics of the market and the attractiveness for international markets for mainland domestic investors. Are there any examples in recent months that we've seen to highlight your point?
I just recently had a mainland trip, and I visited a lot of clients domestically in mainland. As the market have its corrections and Hong Kong's valuations become very appealing to a lot of mainland investors, there are growing interest into the Hong Kong market from mainland. And just take ETF Connect as an example, which is a program allowing global investors to invest in ETF in mainland, and also mainland investor investing in the Hong Kong market. And in particular, the southbound ETF Connect, which is about mainland investor investing in Hong Kong, what we have seen is the ADT has reached more than 2 billion Hong Kong dollars. It's up 116% month on month and 8 times compared to the July launch. So we are seeing very encouraging buying interest and trading interest into the products that HKEX has on our platform.
Wilfred, you talk a lot about Connect and Hong Kong being this super connector between East and West, China and the world. But I think for a lot of our listeners who are not familiar with Connect and what that means, could you perhaps take a step back and take us a bit on a journey of how Connect came to be and what it really signifies?
If we look at the Hong Kong market, right, originally Hong Kong is a very local and just with Hong Kong company listed, and that was the early stage of Hong Kong market. And then very quickly, I think Hong Kong is serving as that gateway and connector for mainland, and it's in the 90s, it's starting to have Chinese company listed on the Hong Kong platform and to be made available for investors globally to invest in China. Now, moving on to the next stage, it was the launch of the Connect program, which actually, when you saw significant development and liquidity growth in the domestic mainland market, as well as the growth in the Hong Kong market, then we feel that there is a need for the two capital to be connected, the markets to be connected. Yeah. So what the Connect program is serving is actually global investors can invest through Connect program into mainland, and also mainland investor can invest through and trade through the Connect program to the Hong Kong market. And that actually have tied up the capital markets between the mainland and Hong Kong market together to form a complete multi-layer capital markets for global investors and domestic investors in mainland. This year in particular, we have seen significant growth in interest in a lot of the Chinese returnees, for example. And in a bit of a forward-looking, we are seeing a lot more enhancements and developments we are going to be putting into the Connect program.
Wilfred, speaking of these enhancements you're mentioning, I like to point out to our listeners that we've just celebrated 8 years of Stock Connect between Hong Kong and mainland China, initially connecting with the Shanghai market and then later also with the Shenzhen stock market. But Wilfred, this year, we've seen quite a number of new initiatives in train. Tell us about the significance of these new initiatives and how that will be attractive to international and mainland investors.
Yeah, I think the Connect program in new initiatives, there are a lot of groundbreaking changes that are yet to come, and we are announcing a few of them already. So the first one that I do want to highlight here is the international companies primarily listed in Hong Kong are going to be eligible for southbound mainland investor to invest in. This is really significant. And why is that the case? Because for a long time, mainland investors who need to invest globally in other global companies, there are no direct and easy way to do that. Now, in future, what happens is for companies that are primarily listed in Hong Kong, they will be available and directly, easily accessible through Connect mechanism into investing in those companies. So that's on one hand, benefiting the mainland investors. On the other hand, global issuers have been wanting to have a diverse investor pool and always want to tap into the mainland investor pool as well. Now, we are providing a great venue, an easy, well-understood listing regime to a lot of global issuers, in particular those who have a significant franchise here out in mainland in China, Greater China.
Brand names, I guess.
The brand names to come to Hong Kong and list. And that's a fantastic example for how capital wants to connect with opportunities, and we are providing that super connector function. As you can see, the development of the China market has been significant, and the trajectory is also very, very steep. So it's simply a market too big to ignore for all of us. Now, as you're growing that portfolio itself, you need more advancement in the way that you're managing your liquidity. You need a lot more tools to manage your FX risk exposure. You need a lot more to manage other market risk and operational risk exposures. And what we are hoping to offer at HKEX here is we provide a one-stop shop for everybody to come here, transact and quote and settle and manage the risk, so that they have one single pool of margining and risk metrics that they need to manage against a central trading and clearing platform. So that utilization, the more you're using it, the more scalability you're going to get, the lower risk you're going to get as a result of the diversification of the products that you're going to transact here. So that is our vision, and that is what we hope to be building on into our marketplace of the future.
Wilfred, very exciting times ahead. As we look forward, what can international investors and investors broadly expect from HKEX as they continue to develop your strategies in China?
Sure. I do want to mention a key important point that you highlighted. It's our 8-year anniversary of Connect, and this is coincidentally what I would call a year of Connect for us, as we have so many breakthroughs in Connect that we have developed and we're yet to be developing, and the scope is just tremendous. And it's a lot easier for no matter global investors coming into mainland market or mainland investor coming into the global markets. And Hong Kong has that irreplaceable place and position that we have, and as the super connector of China and the world. On the other hand, I think the renminbi counter, for example, in Hong Kong implementation is actually a very interesting development, especially in the view of renminbi internationalization, and the amount of also southbound mainland flows going to be very, very relevant in this as we are developing the mechanism of this counter. Yep.
What is the dual counter mechanism? We read about that a lot, but can you explain?
Sure. In Hong Kong, most of the stocks are traded in what we call the Hong Kong dollar counter, and which means that the stocks are quoted and traded and settled all in Hong Kong dollars, the majority of them. Now, renminbi counter is providing an additional counter, allowing the quotation, trading, and settlement in renminbi, and allowing actually a financial instrument to be priced and quoted in renminbi. And that is important because of the increasing need we see on the demand side of renminbi products and the use of renminbi as a currency to manage positions. So when we think about that, we are not going to be just supporting international investors who continue to hold positions in mainland, but we are also likely going to be at an inflection point where mainland capital is seeking more opportunities internationally. And based on the series of the initiatives introduced this year around Connect Universe, we see that China is looking to connect more with the world and not less. And that is really the most important, fact and opportunity for all of us. Because in reality, we know that the world is under a lot of challenges, but challenges come with opportunities. And the fundamental principle is actually quite straightforward, Jeffrey. We know that capital want to connect with opportunities, and we're seeing tremendous amount of opportunities out here in Greater China. And capital wants connections, not isolation. And that's the place that HKEX can help our investors, help to provide options to a market to create a better marketplace of the future.
Wilfred, when can we expect some of these really exciting enhancements to Connect to come online?
Yeah, I think very, very soon. We're going to come out with a very robust plans and get into an announcement. And I hope all of you can actively participate in these great opportunities.
Well, Wilfred, I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us today. Very interesting analysis of the market developments and great to learn about the new suite of Connect initiatives which will be coming online. For all our listeners, if you want to learn more about our Connect programs, please do read our newly published Connect white paper at our website at hkex.com.hk. From all of us at HKEX Voice, thank you for joining and keep an ear out for our next episode. So long.